En capítulo 4, la gramática es pretérito imperfecto o solo imperfecto, pretérito contraimperfecto y cambios de significancia. So our grammar themes for chapter 4 are the preterite, the imperfect, which is also known as the preterite imperfect, but we're going to change to imperfect, preterite versus imperfect, and then meaning changes. So we're actually going to start with the preterite, which is one of the more difficult tenses because there are a lot of grammatical irregularities and a lot of irregulars. So it's basically the simple past tense, and it's used for actions that took place one time. So again, down here, it says for a single completed action. The AR endings are A, aste, O, amos, astes, aron, and the ER, IR endings are the same, E, iste, io, imos, istes, ieron. In both the AR, ER, and IR endings, the accents are on the O's, right here on the O's, and in the Yo's. So those are the only two places where you can find the accent. There are a couple spelling changes that you need to be aware of. So we have car-gar-zars. So the C in car would become a QU. In gar, it would become a GU. And then a Z, it would become a C. Also, we have this umlaut, which is the double dots over the U, and that's for the GU to make the gua sound. So this would be like a very gue, so it's not a very gay. But that's a really, really infrequently used spell changer. We're going to skip this. This is a changer that you're probably hardly ever going to use, but we do have to be careful with this right here. For some IR verbs, there is a sandal verb change. So these are basically verbs that will change only in the third person singular and the third person plural, and they will change either E to I or O to U. The only two O's to use are dormir and morir, and some examples of E's to I's are like servir, repetir, pedir, vestir, and they would conjugate normally in the yo to, and the la they would change in the sandal, and they go back in the nosotros and vosotros, and they change again in the third person plural. The largest category of irregulars is in this box that's highlighted, and if you've had me before, you know the cucaracha song, teneres tuve, estar stuve, iris fui también ser, poneres puse, poderes pude, trajeas para traer, hacer hice, haber hubo, saber super quere quise, decir dije, venir vine, ver vidar dinar, no acentos. If you're unfamiliar with that song, just go to YouTube and Google cucaracha preterite irregular, and it will come up. But basically, we use that song to get the irregulars. So andar would go to anduv, decir would go to di with a J, estar would go to estuv, hacer would go to is, poder pud, poder pus. And the endings on these are like a Tetris piece. So they take a combination of the endings. So in the yo, they're an E, and in the la, they're an O, because those are the error endings. And then in the rest of the the rest of the four boxes, they take the ER, IR endings. So it would be iste, imos, istes, and ieron. The only exception to this is the ieron. When you have a J, like in decir or traer, right here how it goes to dij, they drop the I. So it would be like they drop the I. So it would be dij and then heron here. So anything that has a J in it will drop the I in the ieron. So you just have to be careful of that. Dar and ver are partners. They pretty much conjugate exactly the same way as an ER, IR verb, and with just a D or a V in front of it. And then you have to be careful of ir and ser, which are the F ones. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. They are the exact same conjugations. So you have to be careful with that. But basically that is the gist. The biggest thing you have to remember about the preterite is all of these irregulars. So it can be a little bit tricky. And then we have the imperfect, which is a much easier tense. It's used for past continuous. It's like ing, whereas the preterite is like ed. The imperfect is ing. And it's used for things that are continuing or descriptions or emphasizing like ing or the progress of an action. The endings for AR are aba, abas, aba, abamos, abais, aban, and ER, IR are ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, ian. With the ER, IR, there's an accent on every single I, so ia, ias, ia, all of those I's have accents, and in the AR, only the nosotros on this A has an accent. The only three irregulars in the whole tense are ir, ser, and ver, so it makes it very easy to remember. All of the nosotroses will have accents, so the I in ibamos, the E in eramos, and the I in veíamos, and all of these I's in the veía will have accents. And that is conjugating imperfect in a nutshell, so it's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit trickier when it comes to preterite versus imperfect, so I'm going to let you watch this video. This is the acronym that I use to help you determine between preterite and imperfect. CSIF is for preterite, and the imperfect is death cow. Basically, one of the number one ways to remember it is if it's an action, it's going to be preterite. If it's a description, it's going to be imperfect. If it's like ed, it would be preterite most of the time, and if it's like ing, it would be imperfect most of the time. So this goes into a little bit more detail with some examples, but that's a general rule. As far as trigger words, words like ayer, anoche, el otro día, yesterday, last night, all of those words would be preterite, and the imperfect would be things that are more than once. So like a veces, which is at times, or cada día, which is every day. So those are things that happened more than once, so they would be used for the imperfect. So this is a good list of trigger words. The very last thing that you need to remember, because it's not confusing enough, is you need to remember the differences in these 5 verbs in meaning changes. So these are called preterite meaning changes, so that means they change meaning in the preterite. We know conocer means to know a person, so in the imperfect it means to know. We know poder means to be able to, so in the imperfect it means to be able to. Querer means to want to, so that's what it means in the imperfect. No querer means to not want to, so that is what it means in the imperfect. And saber is to know information, so that's what it means in the imperfect. So you don't need to remember what they mean in the imperfect because they mean what they normally mean. They change meaning in the preterite. If you think about conocer, to meet somebody, we know that preterite is like one time. Conocer is to know somebody. And if you know somebody one time, it's kind of like you meet them, so that's what it means in the preterite. Poder is to be able to, in general. If you're able to do something one time, it means you manage to do it or you succeed in doing it, like a specific time. Querer randomly changes meaning to try to, meaning you tried to do something. And then no querer means that you refused to do something. So they're usually followed by an infinitive, as you can see, yo quise aprender and no quiso comprar, so they're followed by infinitives. And then saber means to know, and if you think about knowing something one time more instantly, it would be like to find out. So those are the 5 words that you just have to be careful with their meaning changes in the preterite because they'll most likely be used in the imperfect if they mean what they're supposed to mean. So that's everything for chapter 4, preterite, imperfect, preterite versus imperfect, and our 5 meaning changes. Adios.